Chapter 15. The vulnerable first rank. The first rank is very vulnerable for the king because the king very often is castled on either side of the board, and when the king does castle, it can become hemmed in by his own pawns and therefore cannot advance. Yet, being posted on the first rank, he cannot retreat. It's therefore logical to conclude that the king is vulnerable to checks by the rook or queen on that critical first rank. And in this chapter, we are going to see many examples of exactly how to exploit this vulnerability of the king on the first rank. Let's begin with this first example. It's white to move, and at first glance it appears that black's king is very well defended. It's castled, and the first rank, from the black perspective, does not seem at all vulnerable. There's two rooks, making sure that everything is defended. But this is exactly the point of trying to learn how vulnerable the first rank can be. White actually has this incredible move, queen takes rook on a8. And the whole point is that if black recaptures the queen, now white has the option of giving another check on this back rank, forcing black to recapture, and after white recaptures that rook, the game has come to an abrupt end and it's a checkmate. The king, very vulnerable, cannot advance, nor can it retreat. There's nothing that can block the check or remove the checking piece, so it's a checkmate. This very well illustrates how vulnerable the first rank is, but let's see it in many more examples so that we learn even deeper. In this example, it's black to move. Again, at first glance, the first rank seems relatively well defended. There is a rook there, keeping an eye on everything and making sure that the queen cannot land on e1. At least, that's how it appears at first glance. But if we calculate a little bit into that line, what happens if the queen does land on e1? Try and think about that. Queen e1 check actually forces the rook to capture the queen. Then our rook can recapture that rook with another check. And this bishop cannot block because it is pinned to the king by our own bishop from long range. Therefore, queen e1 check actually is the start of a forced mating sequence that ends like that. Once again, that vulnerable first rank plays the key. Let's see another example. In this one again, it's white to move, and we're starting to learn now that even when there is no apparent issue with the first rank, you should look very deeply and very carefully at the possibility of all of the defense of the first rank being actually nothing more than an illusion. So how do we do that? Well, we employ the systematic, methodical thinking we've been doing throughout this entire book, and we look at the violent moves. The most violent currently available to us is queen takes bishop with a check, both capturing a piece and providing a check. And the only reasonable response from black, it appears, would be to take the queen with the rook. But now we see the point that the back rank is unattended to, and we can occupy it with our own rook, giving a check. And the king can't move. All that can happen is the rook comes back for a block. But now we have two rooks on that back rank, or we can take with the other rook. Doesn't matter which rook we take with, it's a checkmate either way. In this example, again, it's actually black to move. And again, the white first rank seems relatively well defended. There's a queen there after all, guarding this infiltration square. But as Purdy said at the start of this chapter, when there is a piece that's guarding the first rank, anything that it defends that's not on the first rank, Purdy only spoke about the file, But anything else, even if it's a queen defending something on a diagonal, what it means is that the defense is actually illusory. And we can play queen takes rook. And the reason is that queen is needed on that rank. If it comes and takes our queen, we can play rook to c1, check. The king now can't move. It can only be defended by the rook. But we can take that rook and give a checkmate. Once again, we have this long-range bishop, often a very handy helper in delivering a checkmate. Let's move on. In this example, it is black to move. And once again, the first rank seems to be well defended. But if we consider a violent move, such as rook takes bishop, we see that the beautiful alignment of our queen and rook on the e-file creates massive threats on the first rank, such that this rook really cannot be recaptured. I mean, taking with the queen means that we recapture the queen, and that's basically unthinkable for white. And taking with the rook, that allows us to play rook e1 check, which in the first place also wins the queen, but in the second place delivers checkmate. In this example, it's white to move. And here we can see that there is some vulnerability, that it is apparent to us immediately that this back rank from the white perspective, or from the black perspective, is very vulnerable. And we do have a queen and a rook lined up on the c-file with the potential to land on c8. We see that c8 is defended by black's bishop, but because we have both a queen and a rook, there's potential for us to sacrifice the queen. And even if he takes the queen, we take back with the rook, and that would actually be a checkmate. The only issue is our bishop currently stands in the way of that little tactic. Therefore, it stands to reason that we're going to move our bishop away. The only question is, where do we put it? Well, clearly we don't put it here because that blocks all of our checks. And whilst we could put it anywhere else, potentially, what we really want to do is move it away in a forceful manner, in a violent manner. And remember, it's not just checks and captures that are violent. Threats to check or threats to capture are also violent. And with this bishop, we can play a threat to capture. We can threaten to capture the knight. Now we're both threatening the checkmating sequence, and we're also threatening the knight. And one of those two things is going to have to give. For that reason, white is dominating in this position. Let's say black defends the knight. Let's see how the checkmate looks. Check and checkmate. In this example, it's black to move, and white's king's actually not on the back rank here. And so, in some respects, it's not fair to call this a problem that highlights the vulnerable first rank, but it does. And the reason it does is because black's king is tied to the defense of the rook. And the rook is on the first rank. So therefore, unless white wants to lose the rook, and I'm sure white does not want to lose the rook, then the king is going to have to stay on either of these two squares. Now, given that we would like to win the rook, we can start by playing f3 check and try to move the king away. If the king moves away, we win a rook. The only other option is for the king to, in fact, move back to g1. And here is where the vulnerable first rank becomes manifest. Because now, with our pawn defending both g2 and e2, we can capture the rook, and when white recaptures, this king is trapped. It cannot play to g2 or e2, nor can it retreat off the board. It's stuck on that first rank, and we have a rook here that can provide a lethal checkmate. Let's see that one once more. We can start with this check, and we either win the rook if white moves away, or we understand the vulnerability of the first rank, which makes it possible to consider even remarkable sacrifices such as queen takes rook, because it enables a checkmate in the subsequent play. In this example, it's white to move, and once again, we're going to see a remarkable tactic enabled by the vulnerability of the back rank. Here, of course, black seems to be very well defended on the back rank. They've got 2 rooks that are guarding everything. But we consider our violent moves, starting with check. So we've got a queen to c4 check, for example, and this would also work from b3. Now, that check cannot be blocked, because if it's blocked, of course, we dominate this 7th rank with our rook and queen. Therefore, the king has to move away. Now, this is a very difficult thing to see if you've never seen it before. But because of the vulnerability of the back rank, we can actually assert our dominance over this 7th rank and threaten a checkmate on g7 by playing the astonishing move Queen f7. Queen f7, potentially giving away a queen, but we are very violently threatening checkmate. That's a threat that must be dealt with immediately. But really, there's no good way to deal with it. Even taking the queen does not fit the bill, because now we simply play rook takes rook, and you'll note we are on this back rank all of a sudden. This king is immobile, and after the other rook gives a block, we take it, and the game's over. That's a checkmate as well. So that pattern is worth seeing again. Such dominance enabled on this 7th rank, because if either of these pieces that look so apparently well defending the first rank, if either of them move off that rank, as Purdy says, they can't do that. Anything they potentially defend or attack along a file is only an illusion when they're required to defend the back rank. In this example, it's white to move, and we can see that there is potential here for something to happen to the black king on this back rank. Although the back rank is currently well defended, there's a knight that defends f8, there's a rook that defends the whole rank. But we consider our most violent moves, and what we have here is rook takes pawn check, which really forces the recapture with the knight. That enables us to play queen f7 check, aligning our queen and rook along the open file, and forcing the king into the corner. And now it's actually not that hard to see something we've seen before. We can happily sacrifice our queen on the back rank in order to deliver a checkmate to the king. In this example, it's white to move. In fact, white has just moved. If we take it back one step, this was the position. Now, white has captured our knight, assuming that we are going to take back. However, there is a better move that comes from the perspective of seeing that this rank is now very vulnerable with this rook no longer on it. And the way that we can best take advantage of that is actually by playing queen takes this rook. And the point of that move is that we're still threatening to capture this rook, but now we're also threatening to capture this bishop, and of course we've just taken a rook. So there's not really much that white can do here, but let's say that white captures our queen, which would be relatively natural. Well, now we can play rook takes bishop check, and it's a forced sequence here where white can do nothing but block with the queen, which we can take, and then block with the rook, which we can take. And this vulnerable first rank shines once again as the key to a beautiful tactical sequence. let's move on. In this example, it's white to move. And here, it's not obvious that the back rank is going to be the issue. We're starting to have to combine various ideas that we've learned throughout this book. But one thing that we can see is that we've got a lot of pressure against the black position. The queen and the bishop, they're combining against the g7 square. And that g7 square is currently well defended. We've also got both of our rooks along the e file. And we note that there is an alignment of queen and a black bishop as well. Now, we consider our violent moves. We consider things like bishop takes pawn check. But in that instance, queen takes bishop, and we really don't have much. We've just given away a bishop for a pawn. Likewise, queen takes pawn simply leads to queen takes queen, and then we would have to basically play bishop takes queen, king takes queen, and it's the same deal. We've ultimately just traded the queens and then a bishop for a pawn, which is no good. So there's no real checks we can give, but there's other captures. The other capture we can look at is rook takes bishop. If rook takes bishop, we would be relatively safe to assume, if you can ever be safe making assumptions in chess, that the most testing response would be rook takes rook. Now, if rook takes rook, we realize that this alignment we noticed before becomes more relevant. We could play f6 then, which would bring a pawn into the attack of the g7 square and simultaneously attack black's rook. So if black defends their rook, we would be able to, at the very least, play pawn takes g7 with a check and play on from there. Now, the question is, how would they defend their rook? One option, before we get there, let me just recap. Rook takes bishop, rook takes rook, f6, and now we're attacking this rook. How do they defend the rook? He could play rook to d8, but in that instance, the back rank becomes vulnerable. Let's see this now. Rook takes bishop, rook takes rook, f6, threatening this pawn, and also threatening the rook. Now, if that rook is defended by the other rook, remember what Purdy said. Any piece, whether it's a rook or a queen, that is on the back rank and that needs to be on the back rank to defend against a mate, which is what's happening here. We are threatening rook to e8 checkmate. The only reason that's not possible is because of this rook defends the square. Therefore, its defense over anything on the file, or if it was a queen, anything over the file or diagonal, is illusory, and we can play queen takes rook, knowing that if he takes our queen, we win by checkmate. And so because of that, we've actually been completely justified to play rook takes bishop. This does not work as a result of f6. In this example, it's black to move. We've seen similar examples, so the patterns should hopefully be becoming clear. We know that this rook of ours, if it came here, we would be giving a very strong chance of a checkmate if only this rook wasn't there. But we can make a situation where this rook is not there by playing queen takes rook. Now, if rook captures our queen, we get to play up to this vulnerable first rank. And after the knight or the rook blocks, we take whichever piece we can with check. And once the other piece recaptures, we take again. And there you have it. It's a checkmate. In this example, it's white to move. And again, we have to combine the ideas that we've encountered throughout the book thus far. The back rank is well defended currently, but we can use forcing moves and combine it with the idea of a double attack in order to exploit what actually is a weak first rank. The way we do that is knight takes bishop, and after rook recaptures, can you find the double attack that exploits the weakness of the first rank? The correct answer is actually queen d2, and the double attacks are, well, one upon this rook and one upon this back rank. So, black defends the rook with the queen, whilst also, in theory, keeping an eye on this square. But one eye is not enough when we have two eyes, so to speak, staring at it. So we run in and give a check on the vulnerable first rank. And after he blocks, we can take. And now to finish off, we have another check with a double attack hitting this bishop, which we will take on the next move. In this example, can you see how to force checkmate in 2 moves? You have to exploit the weakness of black's back rank. It involves a sacrifice in order to make it possible to exploit that back rank. The correct answer is queen takes rook check. And after black recaptures, which is forced, we can play rook e8 checkmate. In this example, can you find the way to make the most of black's weak back rank? We have this passed pawn that's about to become a queen. As we know, this rook is really required at the moment to defend the back rank. Or at least we can set up a scenario where it's required to do so. We can do that by rook d1. Now, this rook cannot take our pawn because if it does, we will play rook d8 and that will be checkmate. So, instead, black moves the king. But now we can play into the back rank anyway with a double attack on the king and rook. And if he takes our rook, now we take back, promote to a queen, checkmate, and that's all she wrote. In this example, it is white to move. Can you see the forced checkmate into exploiting the weakness of black's back rank? The answer, of course, is queen takes rook. And after knight takes queen, rook takes knight, checkmate. In this example, it is white to move. Can you find a way to exploit the weakness of black's back rank in order to win a lot of material? The answer is rook e1, attacking the queen. Now the queen can't move off the file because if it does, then our rook's going to land up here with a checkmate. Therefore, the best that black can do is actually give the queen up for our rook. And that, again, goes to show that you can exploit the weakness of the back rank, even without giving a checkmate, but that the back rank, particularly in conjunction with other ideas like skewers and double attacks, can provide the basis of tactics that will help you to win chess. That concludes the chapter on the vulnerable first rank. Come back next time. We are going to be talking about breaking communication.